Good morning. Today's passage is from 2 Kings 23:31 to 24:7. Just before this, we look at the last king of Judah, King Josiah. But now Josiah is dead, and only 4 more kings are left in Judah. In today's passage, we meet 2 of Josiah's sons, Jehoiahaz and Joachim. Both of these kings are considered evil. Their reigns took the place during the time when Egypt was strong. Assyria was fading away and Babylon was rising to power. The remaining kings of Judah were all evil, and their reigns were marked by continuous sin. But what was really need to notice this passage is God's faithful judgment. Despite Josiah's reforms, God saw Judah's sin, and judgment was inevitable. As soon as Josiah died, the king returned to doing evil, and this led to unavoidable judgment from God. We also need to understand this passage is a connection with the prophet Jeremiah. He was a prophet in Judah from Josiah's time all the way to the last king, Zedekiah. In Jeremiah 27, he told the people to accept the yoke of Babylon under King Nebuchadnezzar. In Jeremiah 29, he told them to settle down in the Babylon, build homes, and start families there. This was a hard message for the Israel people to accept, but it was ultimately for their survival. In Jeremiah 23, he prophesied that righteous branch would rise from the David's line. In Jeremiah chapter 33, he said God's promise of salvation would surely come. So Jeremiah's prophecy wasn't just about judgment, but also about God's fulfilled promise of salvation. So what's the message for us today? We must accept God's judgment and trust in His salvation. Even now, we should look to God's faithfulness and trust Him fully. Are you trusting in this faithful God? Today's passage is about 2 kings. The first is King Jehoiahaz, and second is King Joachim. Both of them were evil kings. First part, the reign of the King Jehoiahaz. Verse 31 to 35. Jehoiahaz became king at 23 years old and reigned for only 3 months. After King Josiah's death, the people chose Jehoiahaz to be a king. According to 1 Chronicle 3:15, Jehoiahaz was Josiah's 4th son. The kings of Judah weren't chosen by the birth order. So Jehoiahaz was likely chosen because he was popular among the people. However, verse 32 gives us God's clear judgment. Jehoiahaz followed the evil ways of his ancestors and did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. Later, Pharaoh Necho, on his way back from the battle against Babylon, captured Jehoiahaz and imprisoned him in Riblah in the land of the Hamath. Then Pharaoh Necho made Josiah's second son, Eliakim, king, and changed his name to Josiakim. The name Eliakim and Josiakim both means God has established. But by giving him a new name, Pharaoh Necho was trying to show that his authority was higher than God's. Egypt also imposed a tribute of silver and gold on Judah, and Joachim collected it from the people to pay the Pharaoh. The second part is the reign of King Joachim. Verse 23:36 to 24:7. Joachim became king at 25 years old and reigned for 11 years. Just like the Jehoiahaz, 23:37 clearly says that he did what was evil in the eye of the Lord. The story then shifts in 24 verse 1, where Judah ends up serving Babylon, not Egypt. Here is the historical background. Egypt had allied with the remaining Assyrian forces and fought against Babylon. This was a famous battle of Carchemish. Assyria was completely destroyed and Egypt's power was weakened. Babylon emerged victorious and took the control over Judah. For 3 years, Joachim served King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. However, Joachim eventually rebelled against Babylon. The reason for this is that Egypt had grouped and fought against Babylon again, temporarily winning. When Egypt seems strong again, Joachim decided to betray Babylon. But we remember that the prophet Jeremiah had warned, according to God's word, that Judah should surrender to Babylon. Joachim, however, ignored God's word and followed his own political interests. As a result, he became a king who opposed God. He's especially known for burning the scroll containing Jeremiah's prophecies. As the 2 King 24:2 says, Joachim's eventual death was a fulfillment of the judgment that God's prophet had warned about. All these disasters, as explained in 24:3, were because of the sin of King Manasseh. Manasseh wasn't just any king, he was the most wicked king of Judah. And his sin represents the wickedest of all the kings of the follow. In verse 5 and 6, we see the end of the Joachim's reign and raise of his son Joachim as a king. Joachim naturally became king during the ongoing conflict between Egypt and Babylon. Verse 7 notes that the Babylon took control of the entire region, making the beginning of the Babylon era. After King Josiah's death, his sons, Joahaz and Joachim, ruled Judah, both leading lives contrary to God's will. Their reigns were marked by the return to evil practices, highlighting the pattern of the disobedience among the Judah's leaders. The prophet Jeremiah warned that Judah's survival depends on surrendering to the Babylon, a message that was difficult for the people to accept. Similarly, in the New Testament, Jesus teaches about turning the other cheek and going to extra mile, emphasizing the importance of humility and obedience. This teaching reminds us the value of trusting and obeying God's word, even when we face with the challenging circumstances.